Hi everyone, my name is Yoel Scheer from the Innovation Center Denmark, and we're here in Tel Aviv. And today we're focused on the understanding of the green tech ecosystem within Israel, and specifically impact investing and activities related to impact startups. And we're going to meet two leading stakeholders in this field, Nir Shimoni, the CEO of Tech for Good, and Yoel Cheshin, who is one of the largest impact investors here in Israel and the founder of To Be Hub, the co-working space that we're going to be visiting today. Let's have a look.
Welfare state has declined, so it replaced in many aspects the welfare state in Israel, the impact investing concept.
Okay. Did it replace, or did it, could you say, it took up a place where the state wasn't there yet?
I think differently, because what they say, one of the arguments against the development of impact investing and the development of the social sector in general is this is something that it's the obligation of the state. The state should take care of youth at risk, for instance. Okay? So we don't want the social sector to be big. And in Israel, it's nonsense. Because what, as a matter of fact, is happening since the end of the 70s, the beginning of the 80s, is a decline in the strength of the welfare state and the strengthening of the private sector, both business and social. So this is what is happening as a matter of fact. And I'm not an ideologist. I'm a practitioner, I'm an entrepreneur. And whenever I see a problem, I want to tackle it and solve it, and not by going to demonstrations and say things like it should be on the government commitment. Yes? Also, something that there's no doubt about it, and we see it very clearly, for example, in the Business Roundtable, Israeli Business Roundtable at the time, it's chairman. Business Roundtable in Israel gathers under one platform all the biggest corporations to tackle social causes who can move the needle in the whole of Israel. And the way we do it is much more effective than the government, okay? The officers in the government, they do not know how to collaborate with each other.
Yes.
In business world, collaboration is part of the system, it's part of the way we do business, right? So as a matter of fact, I think that the effectiveness of the business world is much stronger than that of the government. And actually, I am very interested in investigating the Nordic countries to see how it works, because since I do not believe in government, okay? This is why I'm in impact investing, yeah? I would fight not to pay taxes, but willing to take a larger sum of the taxes I should have paid to the government and donate it to whatever it would be. This would be much more effective. This is how much I do not trust the government, and I think how much the government is not effective, and it's just a mystery for me how it works in the Nordic countries. I cannot understand how, because look at Mobileye.
So Mobileye is a large Israeli startup that developed safety technology
yes,
for
and
cars,
its effectiveness is stronger than the whole Ministry of Transportation. They're more effective than the Ministry of Transportation. Once upon a time, we had Minister of how you say it, when you send a postcard to your friend, the Ministry
of the Post Offices.
Yes, the Ministry of Post Office. I guess you have it. You've had it in the past.
Yes.
Who is the Minister of the Post Office? Bill Gates, Yahoo, and whoever they are. Google. We don't have any more Minister of Post Office, because there's no need for that, because it's being sold by the private sector, and very effective, very much more effective than it used to be in the past.
Yes.
Right?
And I think there is one of these major topics that has been discussed in Israel at large is the whole role of sort of deregulation and the question of sort of monopolies, oligopolies, and those areas.
Yes.
And there, in a way, you could say that the government, to some degree, has teamed up with corporates and created sort of industries that ultimately were protected and that, from a consumer point of view, didn't work out so well.
Very bad. We have it a little bit in the transportation sector, you know, when the different kind of regulations that controlled the competition between each other and gave more strength to specific players in the field. And in fact, this is corruption, like any other corruption, you know. This is not an open competition.
Yes.
What else?
I think for us, one of the things that would be super interesting is to learn a little bit about, you've been in the impact investing space for probably the last decade, if not longer.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Where are your roots in relation to that? And how has your thinking of this sector and your activities evolved over time?
Okay, so it's true that I'm one of the leaders in Israel. I've been to dozens of panels speaking about impact. And I'm in a different place now. In many aspects, I'm a little bit tired of the impact conversation. Because I think when too many people who do impact do not understand, they do not really understand business. This is one. Second, once you identify or create a new concept of impact investment, these are the investments which are impact investments. So what you create together with it is those investments that are not impact, right? Because if we have the impact investments, then we have investments that are not impactful. And this is wrong, because every investment should be impactful. Because what is the idea of business? The idea of business is to tackle social problems and solve them and make money out of it, right? This is the idea of doing business. We see a problem, we see that there's something that should be fixed. So we build a business and then we fix it. And what did I want? What was your So I think the distinction should be not this is impact, this is not impact. This is a healthy corporation and this is a non-healthy corporations. And then the majority of corporations will be healthy. Now impact investment is the minority, right? It's like 5%, 10%, I don't know how much. It should be the majority. So I think I changed my impact thesis. I love to find bad people, bad investors, and make them just a little bit less bad, you know, to open their eyes, to make them understand what is the true purpose of business. And it's very much like meditation. I don't know if any of you have done meditation, but you know, they say self-remembrance. Let's remember who we truly are. Let's remember what is the true meaning of business. The fact that we truly believe that the meaning of business is to maximize profits to its shareholders, it's absolutely crazy. It's like saying that the meaning or our goal as human beings is to eat sugar. You know, this is our goal, this is our purpose, to eat sugar or to have fun, you know. Decades ago, when Milton Friedman and other thinkers put the concept of maximizing profit, it was important for back then, because it did say something to the socialists. Don't force the corporations who need to grow to help society, because the best way for them to help society, let them grow. And this is the best way to help society. So for them it was good. So they couldn't speak about goals or the goal of the company. What is the purpose of the company? This is a conversation that couldn't have been spoken 30, 40 years ago. Okay, so we said maximize profits for shareholders.
Yes.
This is the best way to make the world grow. We all know the disadvantages and how it brought us to almost, we ruined the world, right? So it wasn't perfect, this idea. But now to believe that the purpose of a corporation is to maximize profits to its shareholders? The purpose of a bank is to maximize its profits, or is it to preserve and help the citizens to preserve their money? What is the purpose of a medicine company? Yeah? To kill us with medicine or to help us with medicine? Yes? So because you say if the purpose is to maximize profits so they can make us addicted to drugs, and they sell and they sell and they sell and we're addicted. This is not the purpose.
So it misses the point in a way of the overall goal. Could you say a little bit about sort of some of the actors that you've worked with, or some of the investors where you see that there's been a change, and
yes,
maybe some
course.
Good experiences, maybe some frustrating experiences?
10 years ago or 5 years ago, I was speaking to good friends of mine about impact, and they looked at me as if I was coming from Mars. Who are you? What are you talking about? Are you truly a businessman? You're talking rubbish. And the victory is that one of them has approached me like 3 months ago and said, "Listen, I really want you to listen to my new impact fund that I've just built." And I looked, "You? Impact? Wow, this is a victory." Yeah.
And when you see sort of in Israel, I think that's one activity, and the other one is we often see that startups that are being built here are actively looking outside Israel and looking for sort of global markets. Is that something where you sometimes see a sort of a clinch between having local impact and being in Israel, being in sort of social issues actively, and on the other hand, having to look for large markets? Or is there...
I just want to...
Yes.
Okay.
People.
If I see any contradiction between
Yes.
building... no, why? I mean...
No, I'm just wondering if the problems that are existent in Israel, given that it's a low, or to some degree the welfare state has reduced, so there's other social problems that are maybe present in the US, for example. So I'm wondering if the startups that you're working with, the startups that you've invested in, whether there's a disconnect between their activities in Israel and the ones that
Actually, it's a good question, because
globally.
I've had the concept, because we have a problem in Israel, because there's no market in Israel, and there is not enough collaboration with Arab countries around that will have a market with Arab countries. So we're very good at innovation on one hand, but the best thing we can do is build the technology ASAP and as best as we can, and move to the States to build large organizations, okay? So we don't truly invest in Israel for the benefit of Israel. This is a problem of ours. I came to this understanding when I was in Dubai. Before there was peace between Israel and Dubai, I was shocked of how much Dubai is investing in Dubai with its technologies. So I came up with the idea of Israel first, that I will invest in startups who will commit to invest also in Israel, and then I dropped it because it's so hard to succeed as a startup. Then you don't need to put more barriers and chains on startups by forcing them to do it in Israel, because it's actually hurting them. You know, for example, B2C. Israelis as customers, they're terrible. They will kill you, you know? Not they, us. We kill each other, you know? But what I'm doing in the Business Roundtable is that now we're trying to find ways to take these technologies and invest in Israel as much as we can. But the fact of tikkun olam, you know these words, or lagoim. You know, even me, I'm not religious, and I don't believe that we're or lagoim. You know what? You know, it's kind of a. So I'm taking the good part of it. You know, there's a true passion, a true and authentic and legitimate passion. You know, to bring to the world all the good that we believe we have here. Because I think Israel in the next decade is going to be the most interesting place to live in the world. Because we didn't come here only to build a nation for the Jews, okay? the historical story that Abraham came here also to build a nation, but he also brought to the world the concept of monotheism and the concept of Judaism. So what I'm saying is as follows. It's true that in Palo Alto and Silicon Valley, they build the biggest platforms of the world, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. But we build here civilizations. So it's going to take a while, but I think we're going to become very strong as a state to bring some value to the world, this way or the other.
And can I ask, I think it's a topic that has been going on in terms of investing, but I think more broadly speaking, the role of democracy and sort of where we're going in terms of technologies being used either for or against sort of democracy and democratic processes. Do you see, for example, when you imagine Israel and the Israeli tech system currently or the last few years, it's been very politically agnostic. The companies have been very much trying not to be too much politically politicized, so to say. And they're active in the US, they're active in Europe, but they're also active in maybe Asia, sometimes less democratic countries. Do you see that companies will take a more active stand when it comes to...
you mean the business sector?
Yes, the business
Definitely,
sector, and maybe even on also investors.
This is what I believe. And also, I think there's no doubt that the democratic system is primitive. In order to understand who we want to be our president, yes, whether George Washington or is a competitor. So we had to go to the ballot and put the ballot, and they gathered all the papers, and it might be that 2 days after George Washington was nominated, I know that he was nominated. Today, technology not only can have the whole nation know by a split of a second what is on what side we are. We have technologies that by watching the move of our eye, they know what we will want in the future. So there's no doubt that the democratic system is, and we have technologies who might change this system, such as blockchain, for example. You know, blockchain is like a decentralizing.
Yes.
The work of decentralizing. So I hope we'll find better systems than Hegel said, or Fukuyama. This is the best. You know Fukuyama? Fukuyama said that the liberal democracy is the best and ultimate way to live our lives, which I think is rubbish.
And currently, at least in the Nordics, we have a large discussion around green technologies, and we want to help the world reduce its carbon footprint, carbon capture,
yes.
And a lot of these industries, and there's a strong narrative to it. Do you find, in terms of regulation versus the business sector versus other sort of influences, do you see that really happening over the next
deregulation, or what?
Yeah, in some ways more regulation when it comes to internalizing external effects within that the business sector is responsible for?
Yes, of course. Actually, in the Business Roundtable, we're beginning of a platform of not oxygen,
carbon dioxide.
Yeah. So building a very strong platform that can help or bring corporations reduce their carbon and help society with different aspects of the sort. I think, as a matter of fact, what is going to happen is that the business sector, civil society are going to take a very large role in the shaping of Israel for a better Israel.
Last question.
Yes.
Do you see, in terms of where do you see the role of consumers and the role of sort of startup support actors in this transition when it comes to green topics, but also when it comes to more broader social issues?
Well, as consumers, this is a very interesting question. Actually, I have a model of how we can change the world, and we built and worked on different projects relating to that, a model for how we can change the world through consumerism, okay? Because there are two players who allocate money to the corporations, investors and consumers, okay? So if consumers decide to punish a corporation, then the corporation can, in one split of a second, can go down. It's much more complicated than that, naturally. You know, for example, take Apple. That on one hand, we know that they make us addicted to those phones. On the other hand, I love Apple. You know, it's a true inner conflict within me. And to decide that I will not buy Apple, it's a very hard decision. But I might take it if there will be a world movement in which we decide to punish those corporations who do not think of us, think of themselves. And another thing about impact, why sometimes I think it's boring, because the whole concept of impact says something which is very, very, very simple. Be fair, be a mensch. You know, there's a very famous Jewish story about someone who was not Jewish who came to Hillel. Hillel was like a rabbi 3,000 years ago. How can you teach me the whole idea of the Torah, of the Bible, when I stand on one leg? So it has to be very short. So he said, whatever you want, you do not want other people to do to you, don't do it to other people. You know what I mean? It's like it's like the categorical. It's like Kant to treat people as instruments, but as an ends to in themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not much more than that. It's just being fair. And why I'm tired of panels, because we say again and again how we're such good people. We help the world, you know. And the idea, you said, what are the roots? I have people in my family who really succeeded in their lives, and they were very, 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 they had very strong integrity and very fair. That's it. And now let's do business.
Nice. Thank you so much, Yoel.